I was on a stool in my mother's bedroom with a box of costume jewelry in my lap when I found the letter. My brother was in the kitchen pricing the silver, and I had 10 minutes before the appraiser arrived. The letter was folded into a tight square, tucked inside a hollow hardback book on the nightstand, The Secret Garden, the one she read to me when I was small. I only meant to move the book to the donate pile. Instead, I sat on the edge of her bed and read a letter my mother had written to a man who was not my father, 9 months before I was born, telling him she was pregnant and begging him to come home. Home was a town 3 states over I had never visited. The man's name at the bottom of the page was a name I had never heard spoken in my life. I folded the letter back exactly as I'd found it. I closed the book. I did not make a sound. Because some part of me already understood that the lie I'd just uncovered had been tended like a garden for 41 years. And the people who'd tended it would not thank me for the weed I'd just pulled. Welcome back to Lineage of Lies. I'm May. I'm 41. This is the season I stopped being the keeper of the family archive and became the person who finally read it. If you have ever been the one everyone trusts to carry the official story, this one is going to land close to home. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. I am a librarian. I catalog municipal documents for a county system. I am very good at it. People think a library is a quiet place. I think it is the loudest place in the world, because every document in it is a voice trying to say something true, and my job is to help them say it in order. I learned to organize information before I learned to drive. My family is full of storytellers. Big, warm, unreliable people who can spin a legend out of a flat tire. Somewhere in my childhood, without anyone ever saying it aloud, I became the designated record keeper, the one who labeled the photo albums, the one who wrote down the genealogies, the one trusted to turn a messy history into a clean, flattering narrative. The official version. And the trouble with being the official version's custodian is that everyone stops imagining you might one day open the box and read everything. That night, after my daughter was asleep, I ran the searches the way I'd run a patron request. The letter gave me a name. Let's call him William. Draft card, census, marriage license to a woman who was not my mother, date of death. He died in 1984. I was 1 year old. My mother had written a letter he never received, and he died without ever knowing I existed. I sat in the blue glow of my laptop and I did not cry. I was not sad yet. I was rearranging. The way I rearrange a shelf that's been cataloged wrong. Every piece of information I'd ever organized about my family now carried a small question mark at the end. The next night I went looking for more. Because a librarian's instinct is simple, if one entry in the catalog is false, you audit the whole collection. I pulled the military records on my grandfather, Grandpa Joe, the family North Star, the man the scholarship at the high school is named after. The story I had typed into the reunion booklet myself, Purple Heart, the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge, carried a wounded man through machine gun fire. The first digitized file I found was a court-martial notice from 1951. My grandfather had not been a decorated hero. He had been tried for desertion. Dishonorable discharge, time served, a quiet return to a town that never knew the difference. He had come home and told a war story so good that 60 years later the guidance office had it framed. I printed the court-martial notice. My hands were steady. That was the strange thing. I wasn't shaking. I was reconciling. That's the word for what a librarian does with conflicting records. You don't get angry. You update the finding aid. Then the bankruptcy fraud case from 1967. The family's moral reputation, the one my uncle leaned on when he ran for town council, had a public docket attached to it that no one had ever mentioned. And the homestead claim. The deep roots we toasted at every Thanksgiving turned out to be real, but the land had been acquired through a foreclosure my great-grandfather forced on a neighbor. I checked the deed books. The truth was all there, sitting in plain sight for anyone who had ever bothered to look. I had spent my whole adult life curating a story, and the story was built on 3 pillars: the war hero, the upright reputation, the pioneer roots. Every single pillar had a crack running through the center. The first call came the next morning. My Uncle Robert. The Joe Mercer Legacy Gala was 2 weeks away, a big public fundraiser to expand the scholarship, and the committee needed the historical materials. Photos, war record, the narrative. He used the word narrative warmly, the way you'd ask a baker to bring bread. May, nobody does this better than you. You've always been the keeper of the family. I heard myself agree to assemble the packet. And I hung up and understood the shape of the trap. I had written the story they were about to raise money with. If I uncovered the truth now, I would not just be revealing a lie. I would be confessing my own complicity, in front of the whole town. Glenn called that afternoon. He wanted the box of Mom's papers. He's the executor and likes being in charge. Bring them over when you get a chance, he said. Not a question. Just the easy assumption that I would hand over the raw materials without having read them first, because that's what the archivist does. She hands things over. She's a clerk. I didn't bring the box over. I spent the next 3 nights building a file. Not an accusation. A file. The kind a librarian builds for a patron who needs everything on one subject. Court-martial record, bankruptcy docket, deed book entries. I found the marriage license of the man named William, dated 6 months before my mother's letter, which meant she had known he was married when she wrote him. I printed the letter, scanned it, transcribed it so the handwriting couldn't be dismissed. I cross-referenced every family story I'd ever laminated with the historical record that either confirmed it or quietly, gently, undid it. When I finished, I had a stack 2 inches thick and a truth I had never been asked to speak. My family was a lineage of lies, and the lies were not accidents. They were maintained. Curated. Passed down with the silver and the photo albums and the hollow book on the nightstand. During that week, my 16-year-old daughter asked me why I was staying up so late. I looked at her across the kitchen table, those dark, wide-set eyes, the ones that had never quite matched anyone else's in the family photos, and I said, "I'm just doing some research." She nodded and went back to her homework. And I realized the discovery was not just about me. It was about her. The lineage I had been handed was false, which meant the one I was handing her was false, too. If I let the lie stand, if I walked into that gala and delivered the pretty story, I would be embedding the fraud into the next generation with my own hands. The family meeting happened on a Saturday at Glenn's dining room table, 1 week before the gala. Robert was there, and my aunt, and Glenn's wife who has always treated me like clerical staff. They had an agenda printed, and the first item was the Legacy Gala. Robert started talking about the importance of preserving Grandpa Joe's story for the young people of this town. He talked about honor, sacrifice, values. He looked at me with genuine warmth and said, "May's going to deliver the historical remarks. Nobody knows our story better than you." I opened my bag. I set the file on the table between the coffee cups. "Before we talk about the gala," I said, "I think everyone should look at what I found." I kept my voice level. A librarian's voice. No edge. I laid down the first page. A certified copy of the court-martial notice. This is Grandpa Joe's real military record. He wasn't decorated. He was discharged for desertion. The scholarship is built on a lie he told. The room went still. I laid down the second page. The bankruptcy fraud docket. This is the moral reputation. It's a public record. If we're going to invoke the family name in public, I think people have a right to know what's in the file. My uncle's face had gone a color I'd never seen. I laid down the third page. My mother's letter. I summarized it, because reading it aloud felt too tender for that room. I'm not my father's biological daughter. Mom wrote this before I was born. The man she wrote to was married to someone else. He died when I was 1. Then I laid down the last page. A short statement I had written. It said I would not participate in the gala. I would not lend my voice to a narrative I now knew to be false. And if the family chose to proceed, I would feel obligated to deposit the full file in the county archive, where anyone could access it. I'm not doing this to hurt anyone, I said. I've spent 41 years organizing the family's past, and I never once stopped to check if it was true. That's on me. But I can't unknow what I know. And I can't stand in front of a room full of kids and hand them a fake hero. Glenn slammed his hand on the table. My aunt started crying. Robert stood up, his chair scraping hard. He used words like betrayal and disloyalty. He told me I was ruining a legacy for the sake of dusty records. He told me family was more important than the truth. And I looked at him, my uncle who had always been kind when I was useful, and I said, very quietly, if the legacy can't survive the truth, then maybe it wasn't a legacy. Maybe it was just a cover story. They did not stay long. The meeting ended the way a storm ends, sudden, quiet, full of debris. I left the file on the table. No one picked it up. The gala was cancelled the following week. The scholarship quietly disappeared. The family didn't speak to me for the better part of a year. When Robert finally reached out, it was not an apology but a careful request that I not donate the file to the archive. He wanted the truth to stay inside the walls. I didn't make any promises. I did one more thing before the leaves fell. I drove 3 states over to a small cemetery and found the grave of a man named William. I stood there for a while. I didn't have words. I just wanted to see the name on the stone, the dates, the dash between them that contained a whole life I knew nothing about. Then I went home and I sat with my daughter and told her the whole thing. Not the edited version. The messy one. She listened the way 16-year-olds do, quiet, taking it in. And then she said, so that's where I get my eyes. And we both sat there in the honesty of that, a new kind of quiet. I still work at the library. I still catalog things. But I don't curate my family anymore. I deposited the military record in the county archive, where anyone can find it if they bother to look. And I keep the letter in my desk at home, not hidden in a hollow book, but in a simple folder labeled with the name of the man who never knew I existed. It's not a secret anymore. It's just a document. Here's the thing I'd leave with you. A family archive is not the same thing as a family portrait. A portrait captures what someone wants you to see. An archive captures what is. And if you are the one carrying the stories, the designated memory, the quiet keeper, you are allowed to open the box all the way. You are allowed to read the letters you were never meant to find. You are allowed to notice when the dates don't match and the stories shift. And you are allowed, after a lifetime of making it all look good, to set the whole file down on the table, not in anger, but in order. The truth does not destroy a family. The lies do that on their own, slowly, in the dark. The truth just names the damage. And once it's named, you can finally decide what you're building next, and for whom. That's the season I stopped being the family archivist, the letter in the hollow book, the scholarship that wasn't what it claimed to be, the 3 pillars that crumbled the moment I checked the footnotes. If you've been handed a beautiful story and told to carry it without asking questions, maybe it's time to open the box and read everything inside. Share this with someone who needs to hear that the truth is allowed. Tell me your own family discoveries in the comments, and subscribe, because there is always another file waiting to be opened.